Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with Ben Bruce of Asking Alexandria to talk about the brand new record, See What's on the Inside, out October 1st on Better Noise Music. How's it going with you?
Fantastic, really, really good. Yeah, I'm excited. The record comes out soon. I feel like we weren't expecting a record to come out this year, and here we are. So it's exciting.
When you look at the title of the album, are you guys letting the fans know that you yourselves as the band are looking inside of what you've done, and that's what the fans can expect with this record? Or is more the fans going to get a glimpse of going inside of your lives and of your experiences by navigating through the record?
It's a bit of both, really. I think for a lot of bands, I'm sure, but for Asking Alexandria in particular, naming the album's always been so difficult. You go round and round and round in circles with a million different ideas. But for this one, it came so quickly and so naturally and so easy. And I think basically the idea behind the title is we wanted, and even the artwork, we want the album sort of musically to speak for itself. You know, we dug so deep on this record, and we did things in a completely different way than we would normally do them and have been doing them on this album. And we're so stoked on how it came out, and we're so excited for everyone to hear it. And so we kind of just wanted to hold our hands up and let the album speak for itself, you know. And I think that was the idea behind sort of tearing away the layer of the album artwork, and you know, you're going to open up this thing and it's going to take you on a journey.
When you look at the journey that this album takes you on from the first all the way to the last song, do you feel like you've created a little bit of a record that also represents not just where you guys currently are, but a little bit of what you guys had to navigate, or the journey that you guys had to go through from the first record all the way up until now?
Oh, 100%, you know. And I think if there's so many instances in this record where songs are open to interpretation, obviously, and people take from songs what they need to take from them, I feel, you know. And from our standpoint, when you're going on this journey with us, and it addresses our journey from the beginning to where we are now. And you know, you've got lyrics from Danny and Find Myself where he says, how do I kill myself, or at least the parts that have been created to please, you know. And that's that internal struggle of sort of being molded into what the music industry and people want you to be, you know. And you get through the record and you hit fame, and it's talking about, okay, everyone I feel like these days kind of wants fame. Everyone's looking for likes on social media. Everyone, you know, whether it's wanting to be a musician or an actor or a model or whatever it is, people are looking for some kind of approval and acceptance and fame. And you know, that song addresses that too. Like, oh, you think that it's this and this and this and this, but in reality, it's hollow, it's shallow, it's empty. It leaves you feeling not great, not on top of the world. So yeah, there's a lot of emotion in this album that does address our journey from being kids and making something scream to where we are now.
How much do you guys carry forward from album to album, and how much do you allow yourselves room for bringing new influences into the record? Because at the end of the day, I always felt like you had a red line, not just within your albums, but really from carrying you forward. We can see your progression. So how much do you want to carry forward, and how much do you want to bring in new?
We always go into an album with a completely fresh mindset and perspective. But for us, recreating the same album over and over again just it's not an option. You know, with every record, we try and be as true to ourselves as we possibly can be and write what we're experiencing at the time. And so it's kind of like a chapter in our lives. And so to go backwards and recreate a chapter would imply that we've not moved forward as individuals and as a band in our lives. And so, you know, I don't really, obviously we sit there at times and go, okay, well, we know our fans like this, and we know that they like this energy when we're playing live and stuff. But as far as sonically, the overall sound, we never go into an album with a preconceived notion, really, like it's going to sound like this. It's just very much when we're there, who's influencing us, who's inspiring us. And for us, the most important thing is we have to love it. We have to enjoy what we're listening to. Because if we don't like it, I think people will pick up on that, and it won't sound genuine. And so the chances of other people liking it, if we don't like it ourselves, are pretty slim.
Do you guys change your creative process going from record to record, considering the new influences that are coming in, or you have an established way of going into an album?
For this album, we completely changed it 100%. When we started this band back in 2008 or something, 2007, the first album, there were no expectations, there was no knowledge, there was nothing. There was just five kids that were super excited to be creating together. And so, you know, magic happened, I think, with Stand Up and Scream. And on the journey, as the band grows and gets bigger, more people get involved, from management to labels, either to promoters, you know, and it's more, you get pushed in directions and told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And you end up just turning into a cog in a machine. And through those years in Asking Alexandria, it became very much, I'm the primary songwriter. It very much became something where I was like writing and going, okay, here are the songs. James, you fly in and play drums on them. You know, Danny, you fly in and you sing on them. And I think somewhere along the way, as much as we tried to maintain the magic that we captured when we were young, it slowly gets taken away piece by piece as you've been pushed and pushed. And for this record, we realized that. And for the first time in about 10 years, all five of us went into a studio together and did this thing from scratch. And we wanted to reconnect with not just each other in the band, but our instruments and our love for rock and metal. And so it was like a big internal journey of us rediscovering what it was that made us fall in love with rock and metal when we were kids, and trying to recapture that magic and that excitement that we had. So we stripped it back. You know, we didn't rely on computer programs to create sounds and synths, and it was us and our instruments and just the five of us on our own with no outside help, no nothing, just let's do this. And it was the most fun we've had doing an album since Stand Up and Scream.
It comes across in the sound, and it comes across in the overall design of the record. And that's the first thing I want to ask you, is the design of the album. I thought you guys created a record with an impeccable structure. It's so dynamic, it's so engaging for the listener, it's so much fun. It feels like a roller coaster ride, not only musically, but of emotions as well, going from track to track. How much time did you guys spend putting these songs together in the best way possible for the record to have that sort of forward movement that just never ends?
You're not the first person to pick up on that I've spoken to, and I'm so glad that people are listening to this record and picking up on that, because we spent a lot of time thinking about the journey. And the label that we're signed to now, Better Noise, the owner and the head of the label, Alan Kovac, he spoke to me and was like, listen, I don't care if a song fits into a mold for radio. I don't care if it's the single for playlisting. Like he wasn't interested in any of that. He was like, I want you guys to take us on a journey, just like, and he would always talk about Elton John records and the Beatles records and Zeppelin records, which all of these people that I grew up loving and still love to this day. And he was like, the records as a whole took you on a journey. And so we spent a long time piecing that journey together, so that there were the ups and the downs and the highs, and so much so that if you get the vinyl and you listen to side A, you go through this journey, and once you get to the last song on side A, you hit Find Myself, and it's the lowest point in the record. You're super down, super low, it's very dark, and you kind of sit back and like, whoa, like I feel drained, and you flip the disc over to side B, and it starts with "You've Made It This Far," and it's the highest of highs, and it's the most the first song we've written in a major key, I think, in this band's career, and the lyrics are so just inspiring, and like they pick you back up off the ground and they hold you up, you know. And so yeah, the thought that went into the journey of this record, even like I say, as far as flipping that disc over, was a huge thing for us, something that was super important, and I'm so glad people are picking up on that.
I think it's a huge part of this record. I mean, if you listen to the album randomly, you're not going to get the essence of the record that if you listen to the album from the first to the last song. This is really one of those that you have to sit down, press play, and just sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, I really hope that that's the case. There's records that have been like that for me personally in my life. You know, there was obviously Appetite for Destruction is one of those records, but even like more on a more modern scale, there's been records where I've sat down and I feel like I've had to listen to from start to finish. I think one of the first ones I remember as a kid was Avenged Sevenfold's City of Evil. It took you on that journey, and I was like, this is great. And so I know that the way music's consumed these days is very different. You hear a song thrown at you from a playlist and stuff, but I hope people can take the time to do exactly that. Sit down and listen to the record in its entirety and go on the ride with it.
How do you balance then? Because you have this journey, you have this incredible structure that you guys constructed for this album, but you also need to make sure the record stays connected throughout every single song. So how do you balance the diversity of sound, the diversity of emotions that this record offers with that red line that allows the record to still feel as one, to still be cohesive as one unit?
I think we just kind of allowed it to take us where it needed to go when we were creating and writing the record. So, I feel like when we were writing, we did a song like Find Myself. We did feel drained and sad, and you sit back and listen to it and like, whoa, this song took it out of me. So naturally, we wanted to go back in and write a more upbeat song just to kind of pull us out of that funk. So we kind of just let it do what we felt it wanted us to do, and I feel like it was, if there was a song that was a little bit more down tempo, then I think, like, for instance, when we wrote See What's on the Inside, I think we were like, okay, that was more down tempo. I feel an itch to sort of pick the pace up a little bit. And I think that was when we wrote like Faded Out. And it was like, okay, let's bring the pace back up. So we literally we went on the ride with it. We were like, let's let this thing do what it makes us feel like we want to do.
I've had the pleasure of seeing you guys live in Toronto performing, and when I was starting to listen to this record, I felt like you guys captured the both sides of the band, the studio side of the band and the live side of the band. Perhaps on the outside you have the studio side, because the album sounds incredible across every single song. But on the inside, when you analyze the lyrics and how the songs make you feel, it's very raw, which is more of your live side performance. Did you see the record as a combination of these two worlds of Asking Alexandria?
Oh, 100%. And like I said, we wanted the record, when we were listening back to bands like Pantera and Metallica and like Iron Maiden or even Nirvana and Soundgarden, the thing that we loved about those records in that era was that the record felt like the band was in a room, and that room was being projected to you through the speakers, and you felt like the band was there. And I think that's what gave those records that energy. And so we wanted to capture that. And that's why, on this record, all those guitar tones, they're real. They're produced by guitar heads and guitar pedals. Those drum tones, there's no replacement. There's no replacement drums. Those are the tones in the big room that we recorded in. And so I feel like we brought that live element to this record simply by how we performed it and captured it as well. And that was something that was so important for us. And we want to be able to play this album live and it feel familiar. It doesn't feel like it's a live version. It feels like the album.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned already about the tuning and some of the things you did with the guitars. How much of that was organic in the moment when you guys were all together in the studio, and how much of that did you have already in your mind that you wanted to bring into the table?
It was 100% organic and in the moment. And I think we were so emotionally invested when we were doing this album, and we were so in love with what we were doing. I kind of forgot like we were creating an album and this was our career. And we were just so in it. I was so excited that there would be parts where I'd be playing and I'm like, oh man, like this would sound so good with this tone and I need it to sound this way. And you would just know. And so I would go on like a 45-minute trip to Nashville, which is the nearest major city to where we recorded. And I would buy a brand new guitar that I knew had that tone. And I would test out amps in these big guitar shops. Like this is the combination. And I'd buy that and go back to the studio with it just to capture that tone. So it was definitely all in the moment. Like, what does this song need? And it's screaming at me that it needs something. We went and we got that something that we needed.
Being all together in the studio, a different dynamic, different approach. This allow you guys to resolve some issues that came up with some songs a lot easier. And was there a song that stands out in your mind as perhaps your kryptonite on this record?
it's it's funny because it felt so good to just, normally, like I said, it would be like, here's my idea, here's the riff, go play your part over it. But this time, having everyone there to throw ideas back and forth and around, it felt unreal. And it was a very different way of doing it. And sometimes there were, because when you've got that many people doing things, there can be tension, especially if you're not seeing eye to eye. And I do remember one song on the record, it's called The Grey. I think it's the closing song
Yep.
of the record. And that one particularly took a while to get, because that chorus that Danny delivered was so good. It was so good, and we didn't know how to frame it. So that song had about 10 renditions, 10 different styles, 10 different feelings. And some guys were like, I love this. And some of us were like, I don't love this. So we'd make a new one, and we'd be like, oh, we love this. They're like, yeah, but I don't love this. So that song was, and I was like, okay, well, listen, we love this album. We all have to love every aspect of this album. So that one song, there was so much back and forth with trying to just get the sound that we needed. And I think for me, I listen to that song now, and it feels very sort of Foo Fighters with that energy and that intro and stuff. And I think finally we got there. But that was the one on the album where it was like, oh, like this is tough having all these people in the room. But you know, we got there in the end, and it didn't come down to, a lot of times bands will be like, okay, well, let's put it to a vote, and whoever has the most votes wins. We didn't do that. We were like, no, every single person needs to leave this room with a smile on their face. So we worked and worked and worked until it happened.
You mentioned earlier the song Fame. I had a note to ask you about this track because listening to the song, it's perhaps one of the most raw tracks lyrically on the album. Like, you guys really don't hold back on this track whatsoever. You tell us exactly how you feel. Is this a little bit of your own personal experience coming out? Did you had somebody in mind, or is it a little bit more generic in terms of the theme?
I think it's more just what we've experienced through fame, I guess. We're not Brad Pitt or anything, but when you grow up, and for me, I was like, I know what I want to do, and it's this. And you grow up and you're like, I want to play guitar for a living, and I want to be a rock star. I never in my mind ever thought about the fame side of it. I always just thought, writing songs, people hear the songs, that's the end of it. What you don't realize is everything that comes along with it, and I can happily and safely say I would not, had I known everything that comes along with it, I don't think anyone would choose it, or very few people would choose it, because it's not fun and it's not nice. And so yeah, we didn't hold back on that song, because I think there's like I said earlier, a lot of people sort of chase that dragon. They want fame. They think they want fame, but it's not a nice thing. And so yeah, I think there was no holding back in that song, and even just lyrics aside, the delivery musically and vocally, you can hear it. There's like a bitterness in that song. It's like it's really cool, and the way that song ends too is probably one of my favorite moments in the record, where the tempo changes and everything. I feel like that feels like the biggest rock and roll moment on the record is the end of that song.
Yeah, you want to break some shit up.
Yeah, I can't wait to play it live. I cannot wait.
I think it's going to be an amazing live song, because it feels like it's always brewing with energy at every single turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I love that song. There's a crazy energy that comes out when you put that song on.
100%. I have one last question for you, and that is, when you look at a record, I always feel like an album not only paints a picture of where the band is at that specific time, but it always leaves a little bit of a mark behind on the people that created the record. Have you had a chance to see or analyze what kind of mark this album has left on you?
Only now that you've said that, it's been such a whirlwind moving forward. But I think what this album has done to me and for me, and I think I can speak for the rest of the guys too, is it's made us realize how important the five of us are. Asking Alexandria is five friends that came together and started this thing. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's behind the scenes. They've not been there since we were kids. in that tiny little practice room doing this for the love of doing it. And this record and the way we created it, I think, has really brought that to light for us. And we know that the five of us need to keep doing it this way. So for the way we created this record, we all decided right after it, like, this is how we're doing this forever. We're never going back to the way it was before. We're never going to do things in bits and pieces and fly in. Like, every record we do now has to be the five of us, and that's it, because that's where the magic is, and that's where the enjoyment and the love is.
And it comes across on the album for the fans, because I feel like we were a little bit there with you throughout that journey. This is a very raw sounding album, and from an emotional perspective, and also from even the atmosphere that it creates. So congratulations on this wonderful album.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Take care. All the best.
Take care, mate. Thank you, mate.